This is dedicated to Roger. This class workshop is dedicated to Roger and Lisa Gladstone. God should bless them and their children now and always. There's an English translation in the notes, I hope. You have to thank Mrs. Dominitz for it, Reba Rivka, Reba Mina. She's very, she demands that we do it, and it gets done, thank God. Okay, Beseder. First of all, I was so happy that there's no events this week, but there is an event. The event is, it's on Tuesday is this fast of the 10th day of Tevis. The 10th day of Tevis are one of 3 calendar dates that are connected to the destruction of the first temple, and the 9th of Av, the 3rd date, is connected to the destruction of the second temple. On the 10th day of Tammuz, 10th day of Tevis, which again is Tuesday, the fast begins at dawn, and it goes until you can see 3 stars. It's the shortest fast. It's the only fast that we actually observe on a Friday. It's such an important fast that even if it interferes with Shabbos, the preparations for Shabbos, we still fast. And what does it commemorate? It brings us back to the time of the beginning of the siege of Jerusalem. The walls of Jerusalem were breached on the 17th day of Tammuz, about 6-7 months from now in the summer, and the temple was destroyed on the 9th of Av, the following month. Who surrounded the temple was the army of the Caesar, the leader of Babylonia, of Bavel, Nebuchadnezzar, and he sent the Jewish people into exile there. That's why the Talmud is called the Babylonian Talmud, because it was written in Babylonia. What do I want to? Let's just say one thing about a fast day. Fast days are very hard for me. I'm not a good faster, but it explains that the calories that a person doesn't eat on that day, it's like giving an offering in the temple. In other words, you're supposed to still give money for charity for the meals that you don't eat, and the actual flesh that's lost is like an offering in the temple. You offer part of our body, of your body, of a person's body on the altar of the Beis Hamikdash. You made a sacrifice. Okay, how do we relate to a fast day? This is something personal I'm going to share with everybody. Certainly we think about birthdays, thank God, our children's birthdays, our own anniversary, our children's anniversary. It's a big deal. Okay, we connect with them and we congratulate them and we celebrate with them. Okay, and the same is similar to a sad day that happens sometimes in a calendar. A person remembers that day, and the impact of that day, the emotional impact could be a yahrzeit, the day that a person passes away, or a person had a terrible illness, God forbid, and even if they were cured from it, but still, negative events also. So here, this fast day, the 10th day of Tammuz, all the other fast days, there are, okay, the 10th day of Tevis. This month is called Tevis, and the 17th day of Tammuz, and the 9th day of Av. And there's also Tzom Gedalia, which is a fast the day after Rosh Hashanah, and another fast of Tzom Tainus Esther, of Esther. All these days are connected to events that happen in the past, to the collective Jewish consciousness. Okay, and that you're supposed to think back look into each event. It's very simple. By the way, you just do a Google for the 10th of Tevis, a plethora of articles about what actually happened that day, and think back about a little bit about what happened then, and then to myself, that why these things happen, because the Jewish people didn't pay attention to the Torah. We're actually going to learn about that today a little bit, and it should be a day a person should meditate a little bit on how I can improve my connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the Almighty, and my connection to the Torah. And if a person does that, so not everybody is required to fast. So something to if you have a question about your ability to fast, the person is not well, for instance, in any way, you should speak to a proper rabbi, and they'll tell them whether or not they have to fast. But even if they don't fast, the person should think about that this negative thing happened because of a lack of connection of our ancestors to the Torah, to Judaism, to God. And therefore, when I improve my connection, I'm repairing that damage and bringing the situation back to the way that it's supposed to be. And I'm benefiting not just myself, but all the Jewish people together. Okay, so that's the idea of the 10th. Let's go inside to the text of the Baal Shem Tov. We're going to be actually learning two very exciting pieces today, and I'm such a privilege again to share with everybody. We're going to be learning 101 and 102 in Keter Shem Tov. And so you can see the English translation, I hope, on the screen. Okay, so it says, it begins. V'gam hakimaisius brisitam. This is all the verses. This is today. The two pieces that we're learning today are the beginning of Parshas Vayera. Parshas Vayera is the second portion of the book of the Shmos. Okay, and they're actually out of order. Where the latter part of the verse is what we're reading first, and the earlier part of the verse is what we're going to read next. But what does the verse actually say? Let's just read the verse quickly. It says, and God spoke to Moses, and he said he was actually rebuking him. I am the Almighty. Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Hi, Bracha was just checking. Okay, thank you very much. It says, Vayera el Avram ve'el Yitzchak ve'el Yaakov. I showed myself to our forefather. God says, I showed myself to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob with my name, Ke'el Shaddai. I'm going to read the pasuk. Vayera el Avram el Yitzchak ve'el Yaakov ve'el Shaddai ushmi Adonai lo nidaitilem. God says that I showed myself to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob with the names Ke'el Shaddai. Ke'el Shaddai, we learned about it 2 weeks ago. Ke'el goes on God's aspect of kindness. Shakai goes on God's aspect of strength. In one broad way, it's kindness, love, and kindness and judgment. Okay, the two opposites. Okay, but those are the essential emotional attributes. Okay, but God says, but my name of Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, I did not reveal to them. Okay, and then continues, and I established my covenant, my brit with them. Okay, lehem letet lehem etz het Canaan es eretz megureim asher goroba, to give them the land of Israel. And in fact, God was going to Moses and saying, I made my bris with them. Okay, you are the fulfillment of the bris, of the covenant. You are Moshe, the person who's supposed to take the Jewish people out of Egypt and bring them to the Holy Land. Okay, so the Baal Shem Tov begins with that verse. God, this is an unbelievably powerful statement. God is saying to every single Jewish person, I have established my covenant with you. Each person, we take in the Torah in a literal way that God is speaking to us. Each Jewish person has a personal covenant, a personal connection, a brit with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, man or woman. Every single person has it. Will perish about Shem Tov. Look inside. Look in the text. Either in do we have it in Hebrew also? This is Dominus. Oh, this on the screen is Hebrew.
Yeah, the English one's in the
right. The English one is in the chat. Okay, so everybody should have a next to look at. Okay.
Please, next week I'll put them on the same page. Right.
Well, please God, and we strive to improve. It says a parish about Shem Tov. Again, everybody is meditating about this idea that each Jewish person has a covenant with God, a brit with God. He says the parish of Shem Tov, and came the prophet Habakkuk. He's actually buried not far from Tzfat. And he says, and what is the ultimate aspect of this covenant? it's the verse that Habakkuk the prophet said, and is that tzaddik, a righteous person, the emunoso yichya, he lives by his faith. Okay, that the ultimate bringing all of the Torah down to one single point is the idea of faith. We're going to don't anybody leave yet in confusion. We're going to do our best to explain what that means. So, but it's just an unbelievable Talmud. I really suggest, if you have, you can look it up. Mrs. Dominus, you can find it in English in the Talmud. And it's on the tractate called Makos, right? And it's what has to do with the punishments, the Makos, and the 24th page. Yeah, the 24th page, the first side. It's something very beautiful there. The Talmud says, and it's a very long thing, but it was so important to me. I wanted to share with everybody. The Talmud asks, right, how many commandments are there? No, everybody should be shouting 613 commandments. And yes, that's what the Talmud says. There are 613 commandments. How many came from Moshe? No, 611, which is the numerical value of the word Torah. Tov is 400. Vav is 6. Reish is 200. For 400 and 200 is 606. And Hey is 5. The word Torah is the numerical value of 611. How many commandments did we get from Moshe? 611. How many commandments did we get from God? And they are the foundation of all the other commandments. It's Anochi Avai Elokecha, I am the Lord your God, to love God. V'lo yeh lecha elokim achim lefanai. You shouldn't have any gods before me, right? Fearing God, okay? Loving and fearing God. Those loving and fearing the commandments, those two came from God because they are, as we said before in this class, and I'm saying it again, anybody who doesn't remember, I'm sharing with you, love and fear are the wings. Can you just see it? Everybody, imagine your arms as wings. They are the wings, like on a bird, on an eagle, that raise us up, that elevate all of the other commandments, okay? So then the Talmud goes into this. The Talmud goes into this whole discussion about 613 is a lot of things to focus on, as we all know, okay? And so they start off, well, you know what? David tried to make it easier. David said the 15th Psalm, Tesvav, the 15th Psalm. You can all look up some of yourself, but it's this is the only thing forgive me. I'm just going to read it. What does it say? A psalm by David. Who may sojourn in your tent, O God? Who may dwell in your holy mountain? Okay, and now start counting. One who walks innocently, acts justly, and speaks truth in his heart, who has no gossip on his tongue, who has done his fellow no evil, and who has brought no disgrace upon his relative, in whose eyes a despicable person is abhorrent. But despicable in this case means the person who doesn't follow the Torah, okay? But who honors those who are God-fearing, who takes a vow even to deprive himself, yet does not retract. He fulfills his vows. He has not lent money at interest, nor has he taken a bribe against the innocent. He who does these things shall ever not falter. So the Talmud says, okay. Just 1 second. I printed it out. Thank you, Mrs. Dominus. Right? So the Talmud says that there are 11 things listed in that pasuk. Okay, so here's 11 things that each Jewish person can focus on. You can read the 11th Psalm. They are a microcosm of the 613 commandments. So then the Talmud goes on and he says, well, wait a minute. That's a lot. That's a lot to focus on. So Isaiah came, right? The prophet Isaiah, it's in the 33rd chapter of Isaiah, right? And he brought it down to 6. What's the 6? He who walks righteously and speaks uprightly, who despises the gain of oppression, who shakes his hands from holding a bribe, who stops his ears from hearing blood, meaning negative things, and shuts his eyes from looking upon evil. That's it. Okay, that's what Isaiah said. Okay, so then the Gemara continues to say, you know what? And it discusses all these different things. That's a lot also. So then it comes, then it says, then Isaiah said, okay, he brought it down. No, first is Micha. Micha, and he brought it down to 3. What's the 3 of Micha? Okay, it's been told to you, oh man, what is good and what the Lord does required of you. Here are the 3. Only do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. Oh, okay, 3 is even easier. Okay, and then Isaiah, it comes back and he brought it to 2. What's the 2? Observe justice, okay, do good things and perform righteousness. Okay, right? And then it says, you know what? Amos wasn't even happy with that. 2's a lot. And he said, let it make it 1. And the 1 is really beautiful, actually. I hope everybody's listening. The 1 is Deshui. One second. What is it? 1 second. Amos. Ko amar Hashem l'beis Yisrael. Dirshuni v'chayu. Amos said, search for me and you will live. But the Gemara is not happy with that. The rabbis, the Talmud says, wait a minute, what does that mean, Dirshuni, search for me? You're going to search with me for the 613 commandments. Each commandment is another way to search for God. You're back to the 613 again. And so then the final statement is Habakkuk. He says, Habakkuk hemidim al achas, he stood all of the other opinions and he brought it to 1. And this, the Gemara, ends the discussion because it agrees with it. It agrees with it. What's that one thing? Right? Tzaddik be'emunaso yichya. Tzaddik lives with his faith in God. Okay? Okay. So we're going to discuss in a minute from the Baal Shem Tov what's faith. But I want to say that we're going to discuss how a person can express their faith. But I want to say that faith is a mistake, and I want to very much suggest again, if you do a Google and you do what is Amunah, and you do videos, you'll come, there's I think an 18 video series by Rabbi Yossi Jacobson about what is faith. And it's so mind-blowing. And it shows you that the idea of faith by Judaism is not about believing blindly. That's not what it's about. No one is supposed to believe blindly. Okay, I spoke. I think I said it before. First of all, not my father, but my grandfather was observant. I saw him be observant. Okay, and he told me that we have a tradition that goes back all the way to the beginning. Okay, that the Torah was given to the Jewish people at Mount Sinai. In other words, I heard it from my blood relative, okay, of that we Jewish people have been living the Jewish lifestyle for 3,300 years. Okay, so that's one way, right? There's another way also, and that's called Chakira, where a person thinks about God in the world, right? An idea like, right, there were 2 million at Mount Sinai, 2 million people. Okay, you can't lie you can't fool 2 million people, and that's where our tradition comes from. A person, the Gemara says, if you look at the world, there can't be a world without somebody who made the world. A world doesn't happen by itself, no matter what part of science you believe in, big bangs or whatever. There has to be some point that somebody started something. HaKadosh Baruch Hu started the process. There has to be a master to Birazu, to this castle. Okay. One way or the other, and that's those are only some of the foundations of Jewish tradition. Okay, and I want to tell you another foundation that for me has been the most important thing. The Torah is God's will and wisdom. Okay, when a person begins to study Torah, like we're doing now, but here I'm speaking, but the more you study Torah, right, the more that the clarity of the divine wisdom in the world becomes clear. Okay, it's not a question of faith, of blind faith. It's a question of that it's a way to perceive divinity in the world in a logical way. Okay, and so I don't want to just leave that word tzaddik be'emunaso yichya, that a righteous person lives by his faith. That's the foundation, the fulcrum of all the other commandments. But it's just not about blind faith. Either you got it from your forefathers, or you figured it out yourself, or a combination of the two. Okay, but one way or the other, it's an intellectual exercise is the wrong word. It's an action of intellectual empowerment that's possible for everybody. Okay, so now let's go. I thank you for that. So let me share that with you. Okay, so look back inside. So what is he says, Habakkuk came and he stood all of our relationship to God on one thing, that a person that a tzaddik can live according to his faith. His faith is what empowers everything. Okay, and what does he say? The Baal Shem Tov says that in the beginning, in days past, a person's faith was so powerful, right, that it was enough that a tinus, that they're fasting because of some difficult situation, like we have a fast in 2 days. They're fasting, in other words, they're making a physical effort, could actually change the world. That's what the word look inside. Tinus yom echad, fasting for 1 day, must speak l'kama devarim neroim, were enough to nullify a number of negative things. Okay, so the first thing I said is emunah is something that each person is, according to a Jewish person, it's not about blindly accepting anything. It's something that has to be worked on. And if you don't have classes or places to go to, look in the internet and start listening. Each class is about an hour. So Yossi Jacobson, what is emunah? It will change your life like it changed my life. Okay, but the Baal Shem Tov here is talking about a person who has emunah. How do we express our emunah? So there are 2 ways. One has to do with the word tzaddik, right? We show that we have faith in God by the more careful we are about fulfilling the commandments. Okay, on a broad level, that's called shmirat habris, observing the covenant. Okay. Shmiras habris could also be connected to acting in a modest way, okay, not committing adultery, guarding your eyes from watching or looking at negative things, okay. But in general, it's shmirat habris, keeping the covenant means a person being careful about Jewish tradition. Right. The other way is by seeing divine providence, looking for God. We're going to speak about this much more in the next piece. Looking for God in everything, right? Every single thing that happens. What's the divine providence? Why is this happening to me? It's in other words, it's not why is it happening to me. It's why is it happening to me? Why? That's the thing. The word for why in Hebrew is lama, but don't read it lama. Why? Read it lima. For what? For what is this happening to me? Why is God making this happen to me? Or another word for why is madua. Madua is ma de'ah. What knowledge am I supposed to learn from this? What am I supposed to take from it? Okay, that's the power here. That's the power. Okay, that faith is a thing that you have to study. But when a person is on the way they express their emunah, okay. What from the word tzaddik be'emunah yichya, how does a person live his faith? One is by his adherence to the commandments. That's obvious. And whether you do all the commandments or just some of the commandments, right? But if you're going to do a commandment, you do it with everything, with all of your ability, okay? And you study about it, and you live it, and you breathe it, and you smell it. You want to be able to taste it. That's one level of emunah. The other level is seeing God in everything. And the Baal Shem Tov is saying that if a person practices those 2 things, if he is careful about the commandments that he does, he shows his faith by being careful with the commandments, and he shows his faith by looking for God in everything. Again, not why did it happen to me? Why did it happen to me? What is God trying to teach me? Madua, ma de'ah. What's the word de'ah is knowledge. What knowledge am I supposed to learn from this? What's my takeaway from this? Why is God doing this to me? What am I supposed to learn from it? Okay. When a person looks at things that way, that shows his faith, and that will allow them to do miracles, to transform the world, to change negative into positive. But it all starts with emunah. Okay, all right, that's one. Let's go on. I'm sorry. Any questions? Hello?
Rabbi,
Levi.
not a question, just a comment. Another shorthand example of what a good Jew is supposed to be doing comes from the Haftarat Balak. It's the final sentence, and I learned this years and years ago, and it's one of my favorite single sentences from all Scripture. I'll just quote it for everybody. It's the very last sentence. He has told you, O man, what is good and what Hashem seeks from you. Only the performance of justice, the love of kindness, and walking humbly with your God.
That's beautiful, but we mentioned that. That's in it's Amos, no? 1 second.
It's Balak.
No, but where's the Haftarah from? Yeshayahu. It's from Yeshayahu.
It's Micah. Micah, yes.
So we said that's the Gemara said. Thank you very much, Levi. That's what the Gemara says, that it was first King David had 11, and then Isaiah had 6, and then Micha had 3, right? And then Amos had 1.
Yeah.
Right. That's always. So
I wanted to point out that
you quoted it. Thank you very much.
Yes, easily found in Scripture via the Haftarah Balak. That's all.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's Micah 6:8. I keep it on my refrigerator.
Who's that? Who's saying that?
Liba.
Liba. Okay. Well,
I have a question.
You can put all we had. Wait 1 second. We had 11 and 6 and 3, 11 and 6. Well, you know what? Maybe if I have time next week, I'll make a list of everything together. Yeah. Who's speaking?
Ron.
Ron.
Hi. And when we say, why did this happen? Maybe for me, but is it? We have to look. I think there's some things that we can't answer in our lifetime, and some things that
I couldn't hear you. Some things that we cannot wait. Some things that we cannot what?
Understand why it happened, and if you look at maybe it's karma from a previous life, where it's a bigger picture beyond one's life, or are you saying that we should be able to have the faith and understanding and wisdom and insight that thing that happened, that horrific thing that happened, and there's a benefit in this lifetime as opposed to that we have to look at it and maybe our children will benefit from it or maybe society will benefit from it. But for the individual, that tragedy will never be something that they're going to be find an answer for.
Finding an answer of why something specifically happened to a person there is a tradition. Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch said that foresight is a level of prophecy. Okay, clairvoyance, foresight. But God gave everybody an ability for hindsight, looking backwards and understanding why things happen. Sometimes we're very close to something and we can't understand it. Okay, we cannot understand it. Usually, as time passes, we can understand it, but there's a caveat. And we have mentioned this before, and I'm so thankful that you brought it up. Thank you very much. It's not that we can understand why a negative thing happens always, Ron, because that's only God understands everything. A child doesn't understand what a parent does. What is a child expected to do? To take what the parent said and to run with it, okay? And that's the same thing that God expects from us. When something tragically negative happens, I'm not trying to understand why it happened. That's in many cases, certainly when the event happened, it's impossible to fathom it. My brain can't get around this, God forbid, tragedy, this terrible tragedy. What I cannot understand is what God wants me to do with it. Sometimes it means pulling myself together. Sometimes it means, I think we mentioned it before, there was a woman who lost her husband in one of the wars and she couldn't get over it. And the Rebbe said to her, you have to go and help other women in the same problem. And then that's how you will find solace. Rabbi Jacobson gave out 8 videos over Hanukkah. And one of the videos was about his grandmother. Her name was Liba Posner. she had a very, very difficult life. Children passed away, and difficulties in moving from country to country, and terrible, horrific problems with supporting the family, and all kinds of. And she became depressed. Okay, and the Rebbe said to her, she has to go and dance at every wedding, and she became famous. Of the woman, even she was like 90 years old. Not like she passed away in her 90s. She was in her 90s. She was going to every single wedding, and she was the life of the party. She brought happiness to other people. I don't want to belabor it. It's not about understanding lama, lima, for what did it happen to me. It's not understanding why it happened, what God's plan is. It's about taking God's plan and utilizing it in the world. That we can discover. Does that make sense? Can you hear that? It's not. Why did God throw me this curveball? Right? Because He wants me to hit it out of the field. I have to do something with it. Right? I can't understand why everything, but I can understand what I can do with it. Okay, and that's what it means. Lima. For what? Why did this happen to me? Because I have the ability to take it and to transform it from something tragic and horrible to something better. I'm sorry. Okay, who spoke, please?
Yeah, I was like, Rav Leiter, you're not sharing the end of the story with Rav Y. Jacob's grandmother, how she passed away.
No, okay. So remind me.
Remember just before she passed away, they all dressed up as if they were going to a wedding. And they started dancing, all the children and grandchildren dancing in the hospital, and all dressed up, and the doctors marvel at what was going on, and that's how she left this world in happiness and joy.
Right. There was the one wedding that it was a family wedding, and she wasn't able to be there because she was she was unexpectedly taken to the hospital, and so all of her children and grandchildren, I think there were dozens and dozens of people, came to be with her, and they just sang. Yeah, thank you very much, Leah. They sang and sang, right? And she left this world with happiness that I can't even imagine. Okay, all right. So that's our job. Our job is to take the negative things and to transform it. Okay, with Hashem, and that's what it means. Hashgacha pratis, the divine providence. What's the divine providence? That this happened to me, because I can do something with it that no one else can do. This child was given to me because I can do something with them that nobody else can do. This situation came to me, even God forbid, an illness or something of something. I don't even want to chas or something should never happen to anybody. But the Rebbe said to Nechei Tzahal. Nechei Tzahal are people that were crippled in the wars. People, injured soldiers that were injured. Okay, and he said he had a group of, I think, 40 soldiers that were brought on some kind of it's a trip, rest and relaxation. They were brought to America, and somebody suggested they go see to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe came and spoke to them, and he said, the Rebbe, it's a mistake to call them Nechei Tzahal. They should call them gifted people. Why gifted people? Because if God took away some aspect of their health, of their physical movement, is because they have gifts that nobody else has, and they can take that situation and transform the world in a way that nobody else could. That means a person who had this crippling problem is because they have special talents that are above and beyond others, and that's what God wants them to do, is to use those to reveal those talents. Okay, that's the answer. I hope I said something that made sense, and we can sort of discuss it more privately if you'd like to. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? If I don't want to close, anyone stop any questions? But Ron, did we say something that helped?
Yeah, sure. It's fine, Rabbi.
Oh, Hillel. No, what happened to Ron though?
Okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Hillel, how are you? Okay, let's go. We're gonna do 102 now. So this is the first part of the verse. It says Vayera El. Okay, again, that's what did we learn? That's, I don't forget it. A person can live on his faith. He can change the world completely. When he sees God in everything, and then he looks for the purpose of why something happened, and what do I have to do with it, right? And with his carefulness about the Jewish tradition, that gives a person an ability to control his environment and not be controlled by it. And that's what goes back to the beginning of the verse. That's why God made this covenant with us, not to be pawns, to transform the world. Each Jewish person has that ability to transform the world. Okay, that's 101. What about 102? It says Vayera ela avos. It's the same. It's the first pasuk in that parsha. And I showed myself to the forefathers, the Kel Shakai. Okay, with the emotional attributes. Okay, so what is the Baal Shem Tov? Now we're taking it from a completely different place. The Baal Shem Tov says, what are these emotional attributes? How many are there? There are 6. What is 6 talking to me? What's it telling me? About the 6 extremes in the creation. Front, back, right and left, up and down. Okay, and it's not exactly sides of a box. The Talmud says, we spoke about it last week or 2 weeks ago, Kel Shaddai, the idea of from a center point moving out in all 6 directions, right? And God, it's something, and that's the, what do you call it with science says that the world is expanding. There's a word for it. I forget the word. Okay, is constantly expanding. The Torah says, God said, Shaka, Shin, Dalaj. What? Okay, yeah. Chaya Bracha, say hello to everybody. Yes, I can. Can everybody hear me? Anybody hear me? Yes, they can hear me. I can hear them. CB, it's Mendy. It's not. Can I finish my class? All of our computers broke down. The only hotspot that's working is my wife's phone. Okay, so there's a whole teaching from Rabbi Yitzhak Ginsburg about 6 constant mitzvahs that create this box around us. But that's not what the Baal Shem Tov is talking about. The Baal Shem Tov is, anybody who wants that list of 6 mitzvahs, we'll put it up next week on the site, on the app. Okay, he's talking about the 6 emotional attributes are like lines that are moving outward. Okay, and they create this environment around each person. Okay, and the verse continues, "Va'akati shmi avaya," but my name of Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey I did not reveal to them. Now, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, on one level, we've discussed it before, is a microcosm of all of the creation. The Yud, the contraction, the Yud is the smallest letter, how God contracted himself. And the Hey is a vertical line, a horizontal line and a vertical line, width and height. And this third leg of the Hey is a Yud point going into and out of the page. It's the expansion. So the Yud is God's wisdom, and the Hey is God's understanding. Just like the Hey expands in 3 dimensions, so understanding. The Vav of Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, that is the 6 emotional attributes. Okay, and the final Hey is Malchut. Okay, so he's saying that God said, I revealed myself to the forefathers with the 6 emotional attributes. Abraham is connected to kindness, and Yitzchak is connected to judgment, and Yaakov is connected to compassion, right? And then Netzach Hod Yesod, 3 secondary emotional attributes about how we express them in our relationship with other people. Okay, 6 different extremes. That's the word, katsavot. 6 different extremes. But my name, God's name of the name that encapsulates it all, the name that goes on God's aspect of da'at, of knowledge, of God's looking into the world, empowering, that he didn't tell them. What does that mean? He informed them about their 6 emotional attributes, but he didn't tell them about their level of consciousness. Why? Because that's the attribute that each of us has to use to transform the world. Yeah, you can feel happy, you can feel sad, or you can feel empathy, or you can netzach is how you connect in how much kindness do you do, and hod is about how to limit how much you can to limit your influence, and yesod is your connection, and right, all the 6 attributes, right? But where does the divine come in? When we use our intellect and look into each thing. And that's what he says, right? That what does it mean that God didn't reveal, it's me, Havaya Lona Daiti, I didn't reveal my name of Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, because that's the level that we have to input into the world. And he says, Shiyitain das bekol darkecha de'ehu. What does it mean that it says it's a verse, and it's a pasuk. The pasuk says in bekol darkecha, in all of our ways de'ehu, that we should show we're connected to God. How a Jewish person walks down the street, you should see that this is a Jewish person. How a person speaks, this is a Jewish person. How a person dresses, this is a Jewish person. That's the simple explanation of Bekol Darkecha De'ehu. In all of your ways, De'ehu. You should show your connection to God. Okay, but the Baal Shem Tov is taking it to the other extreme. He says, Bekol Darkecha De'ehu. Think about every single thing, every single action that you do, right? Think about how I can reveal divinity in this thing, how this action can be a vessel for divinity, how my actions can reveal God to the world, not just for me, my family, but for other people as well. That's what he means, the call darkecha de'ehu. And he takes it a step farther, right? Kitzur retain das. Not only in every action, in every thing that I come in contact with. They call davar gashmi, every material thing. Okay, what's the spiritual purpose of this chair? What's the spiritual purpose of this book? What's the spiritual purpose of this newspaper, of this bus, of this what's the spiritual purpose of, I'm just turning off my phone. New phone, don't know how to turn it off. I forget it. All right. What's the spiritual purpose of every physical thing that I come into contact in my life? How can I use this physical thing, not just my actions? My actions should be an expression from divinity. Also, every physical thing that I come in contact with should be an expression. I should put my da'at into it, put my spiritual energy into it, okay? Right? That's the whole idea of being an adult. And a child is just emotions, and a child is still 6 emotions wound up, right? And what's an adult? An adult is a person who thinks before he speaks, who thinks before he feels something. He uses his brain, moyach sholet alalev, using my das, my consciousness, my knowledge, my chokhmah bina das, my wisdom, understanding, and knowledge of every action that I do, of every physical thing that I come in contact. It's not even a Chassidic Shavuot. I was at a bar mitzvah in London 10 years ago, and somebody spoke, and they said, there's a katan, a child, and a gadol, and an adult. What's a katan? Kat from the word kat. Everything is kat means sharp. It's this way. A child doesn't have any. He wants it this way. Can't compromise. Doesn't want to give it to me now, right? I have to have it now. Everything is immediate. He's cut and dry. Okay. What's an adult? Adult is from the word gadol, meaning big, but it also from the word gadot. Gadot is the side of a stream that meanders. There's no sharp points. An adult, he manages in his world because he sees everything as a flow, right? He thinks about what God wants from me, how I'm supposed to use this situation or my abilities in the best possible way, okay? And he doesn't get stuck. He's constantly going with the flow. That's truly a spiritual person, okay? Okay, so that's what he says. He says not only B'kol darkecha de'ehu, I have to use my da'at, my knowledge, my chokhmah bina dat, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Intuitive, not intuitive, consciousness that came from having an idea, that's chokhmah. Bina is understanding that idea, and the result of really understanding it becomes a part of me. That's dat. When I use that dat consciousness, and I think about my actions, first my emotions, then my actions, then all the physical things that I come in contact with, okay, that's when I'm fulfilling my true purpose in the world. Okay, that's what he says. He says, Kol Devar Gashmi, look inside, please. It says, not only B'kol darkecha de'eu, in every, my actions de'eu from the word das, I should show da'at in every action that I do, right? That's a wondrous thing. It just changes a person's life. You know, you're not a victim anymore. You're not being controlled by others. You are the one who is showing the power and the control. And not only the kitzarach ledat b'kol davar, not only actions, but every physical thing that I come in contact with, right? Why? He says, gamkein lahaloisei, to elevate it. Every mundane thing, from an apple to an experience, right? To a button. Every physical thing can be elevated. That's number one. Ula kashro, it can be connected. The kashro is kasher, to tied in, right? Ula chaber, and connected. Chibur, okay. And what verse do we relate it to? It's the Baal Shem Tov brings a verse from Truma, from the 20. Second, I'm just making a mistake. Yeah, the 26th chapter of Truma, and it's talking about the Mishkan, okay, the tabernacle, the first place that God revealed himself to the Jewish people after they received the Torah, okay, that there was actually a place where God revealed himself, and that was called the Mishkan, the tabernacle. And the 11th verse says, what does it say? It says, it's a long verse. It says you must have them make 50 copper clasps, and you must have them insert the clasp into the loops, thus joining the two halves of the goat hair tent. Okay, so of the goat hair tent together and make it one. That's the point. The verse says, again in Hebrew, it makes more sense in Hebrew in this context. It says, "V'chibarti es ha'oil v'haya echad," right? And I connected all the points together. I put my dot into everything in my life. I thought about, why is this happening to me? How can I make this action a holy action, this eating event or sleeping event, or just being with the people? How can I make it a holy event? How can I make the things that I'm connected to into something holy? To use a book or a ice cream cone or a piece of cake to help someone else, or to do some benefit for the world. Okay, when I do those things, he says, then I took the tent and I made it one. I connected all the points in the creation, in the world that I live in, and I unified it from the echad, from the word Hashem echad, that God is one. Okay, and he continues. I hope everybody's with me. And if you have any questions, stop me. Okay. He says the same thing with when you study Torah. Same thing when you study. What? Hello?
Yeah. Hi. I have a question, Dara.
Your box lights up when you speak, Dara. I see it right away. What's up? We should
yeah.
all light up when we speak, like Dara. No. Oh yes.
Okay. In the oh well, actually the texts are different. Okay. What's the word before Shemi? It's Vav Aleph Kaf Taf Yod.
It says the Akati, nevertheless. It's an Aramaic word. Va'akati shmi havaya. My name, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, lo nadaiti. I didn't reveal it. Okay. I didn't, because you know what? Why does a parent hide themselves from the child? Because they want the child, like Micha said, wants the child to look for them. Okay. God didn't reveal the power of Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey because he wants us to take our ability, our insightfulness, and to look into everything and to say, right, how can I transform this into a positive spiritual event? Okay, and so he continues. Right, so when a person learns Torah, okay, 1 second. Okay, when you're learning something deep, okay. Sometimes you're learning something deep, and the truth is, I'm going to share with you something. I don't know. I'm sure everybody knows this, but I'm going to remind all of us. Sometimes you can read something once or twice or even 3 times. The 4th time is sometimes a charm. You know, when you read something, a text, you can take a particular Torah text, reading it in Hebrew or in English. You have a translation, okay, and you don't get it on the first try or the second try. But if you read it again and again, somehow, very interesting, very beautifully, the words fall into place, and you understand something there that you didn't understand before. You know, sometimes it requires asking someone. Sometimes it requires looking something up, understanding the context of something. Okay, but whichever way, when a person studies something amok, he says ve'ein mevin, and he doesn't understand it. That's the midah of malchut. Okay, again, we have 10 sfirot. There's the 3 intellectual attributes: chachma, bina, and dat. Wisdom, the point of knowledge. Okay, the point of wisdom. Bina is understanding it. Knowledge is when it becomes something part of me, right? Knowledge, consciousness. Then I feel it. Okay, and then the last sphere is Malchus. So Malchus is this world. So on one level, Malchus is about God hiding himself and our searching for him. Okay, God went through the same process of intellect, emotions, and he created the world. Malchus is this idea of God being hidden, Hester Panim. Okay, but also Malchus is the idea of speech, like saying the words of Torah. When I take something that I don't understand and I work on it, look inside, that's what he says, Kshanas and Das, and he puts his whole brain into it. And that could, like I said, it could be reading it again and again. It could looking up the side, the context of, or the foundation verses for what I'm studying. It could be by asking someone who's more knowledgeable than I am, and then going back and reviewing it again. When I put my das, my wisdom consciousness, my knowledge consciousness into that thing, right? Lahavin, to understand it, right? The yard la'amko, and I'm able to actually get down to some level of the depth of that thing, right? As what am I doing? Right? I'm exactly what we said before. That's the whole purpose of why God gave me my ability to think, to perceive, to use my knowledge. But even more than that, as Mekasher, right, the Chiber Malchus Bebina. You know, I'm taking Malchus, the hidden part, but that's also, Malchus is also speech. I'm taking, when I'm speaking it out, and it's very, actually, by the way, it's very helpful when you're studying something to actually say the words. Don't just read it with your eyes. You go into any yeshiva, you'll see that everybody's reading it outside. Don't worry that somebody's going to think you're crazy. Read it out loud. Not only that, stand up and read it. Belt it out, okay? It doesn't matter if anybody can hear. It's only you there. Saying it out. It creates an entirely different gestalt with the studying, makes you understand it in a way that wasn't possible before. And what is that? Even when you understand it, you're connecting, you're elevating You're elevating the lowest sphera all the way up to the level of understanding. In other words, putting your das is it's wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Knowledge is das. When I have something I don't understand and I put my das into it, and my das goes all the way down to the last sphera of Malchus. Again, it's Chachma Bina Das, Chesed Gevur Teferes, Netzach Hod Yesod, and Malchus. Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, kindness, judgment, compassion, Netzach Hod Yesod, eternity, glory, and foundation. And those are, we said it before, I'm not going to say it again. The final way that God expresses himself in the world is Malchus. On a human level, Malchus is speech. When I take something I didn't understand and I read it out loud, okay, and I come to understand it, then I'm elevating that lowest sphere, the level of darkness, of godliness hidden, up to the level of understanding, okay? And ultimately, right, that's what happens with all the things. When I put das into my actions, into perceiving the physical things that are around me, okay, and into my Torah study, I'm elevating the world, I'm connecting it to holiness, and I'm revealing godliness in everything that we do. Okay, and I just, I actually, what time is it? Oh, it's late. I prepared 4 different stories. There's just, I think there's one story, and I just want to say it. It's quite short, but there was one of the Chabad Rebbe's, his name was Shalom Dov there, and he was, he was an incredibly, he wrote volumes and volumes of very, very deep ideas in Chassidus. And once he was at a Farbrengen, a Chassidic gathering, and everybody was crying, right? And because he was selling such high things, and everybody wanted so much to connect. And so the Rebbe said, one of the Chassidim said to the Rebbe, how do I elevate myself? How do I here we're talking about elevating the world. How do I elevate myself? And the Rebbe said, come into my carriage. Right? My carriage is soaked with the tears and sweat of my divine service, and it's imbued with my struggling to understand things. Okay, join with me in my mission, in my journey. Okay, and so another chassid says to him, and Rebbe, where's the entrance to your carriage? How do I get into your carriage? And the Rebbe said, the first thing is exactly what we said here. By looking at everything in the world and thinking about what its purpose is and what I'm supposed to be doing with it and using it for that purpose and that purpose only. That's one step. And the other step is taking time every day. He actually wrote there, taking 15 minutes every day just to think, right, about how God exists in the world. Okay, that's how you enter the carriage of the journey, the Jewish journey. Okay, anyway, I want to tell one story about the Baal Shem Tov, and I apologize for going over time. I promised to okay, but there's a story about I just saw a story about the Baal Shem Tov. What? The story about the Baal Shem Tov? I'm going to stop apologizing. I'm just going to have to tell the story. There was a certain city-state in Europe, right? And the king got angry at the Jewish people, okay? And he said to them, and he told them they all have to leave. And all the big rabbis, there was a large Orthodox community there. All the rabbis got together and they said, why is this happening to us? Exactly. Why is this happening to us? And why is it happening? It's happening because we're not, the quality of our Jewish life is not enough. Okay. But we're all trying as hard as we can. So what are we going to do? We're going to put Moses, we're going to excommunicate Moses. It's Moses' fault. Moses gave us the Torah. The Torah is very demanding. We're not fulfilling the Torah on the level that we're supposed to fulfill it. We're going to take Moses to the heavenly. We're going to put him in the Cherem. We are a bunch of rabbis. We're going to excommunicate Moses. Okay, and they're serious. They all got together and they're thinking how they're going to do it, because all of their troubles, they really are sincerely fulfilling the Torah as the best that they can under those circumstances. And if it's too hard to do it, then we're going to take Moses to court. And all of a sudden, a kapsan comes, a poor man, somebody who collects a collector, a money collector. Okay, and he listens to what they're saying. He says, "Don't do that." He says, "Moshe emet v'Torah emet." Moses is true and his Torah is true. Okay, leave it to me. I'll take care of it. So he goes to the king. He goes to the king, and he says to him, "You better not. I'm not afraid of you. You better not expel. You better not expel all Jews. And if you expel all Jews, I'm telling you, you're going to start growing hairs that are so hard that no barber can cut them. Okay, and you're not ever going to be able to put your head down. You're going to have these hairs that come out. You're going to be uncomfortable all the time. And as soon as this as soon as this little money collector said it, all of a sudden, these like iron rods like grew out of this king's head. Okay, and he freaked out and he brought all the barbers and nobody could cut them. Okay, and so the little money collector is the kapsan is saying, okay, give it to me in writing that you're going to take back the decree to expel all the Jews. And then, okay, and the king didn't know what to do. So I'm telling you, this is exactly, I'm reading it. If I was reading it from the book, this is exactly what it says, right? He signed the piece of paper, okay, that he's not going to expel the Jews, okay? And as soon as he did that, then all of the iron rods fell down. This fell off. I don't remember if they fell off or if they disappeared. I think they fell off. So the story, so it continues that when the Baal Shem Tov heard that story, he said, "Wow, I could certainly make the hairs grow, but to take them away, I couldn't do that." And so, so it says, so who was that? The collector? He was one of the 36 tzaddikim. Every generation has 36 tzaddikim, that they are the righteous men upon which the world stands, and some of them are revealed, and some of them are not revealed. Okay, 36 tzaddikim. Okay, and so it says that the Baal Shem Tov at that point in his life wasn't one of the 36 tzaddikim, but late in his life he became one of the 36 tzaddikim of the world. Okay, that's it. Questions?
Not too bad right now, huh?
Anybody have any questions? But first of all, I just want to say Moshe and Levi and Dr. Herman, and Sergio, so good to see you. And Leah, what a pleasure. Lisa and Chaya, Valerio, Baruch Hashem. Ruth, thank you very much for staying with us. And Dara, you're always, I look forward to your questions. Liba, thank you much for being here. Ron, I never answer your questions well enough, but I'm going to keep trying. Anthony, thank you for coming. Ken, Shira, Daniel, Baruch Hashem, and that's me. Thank you very much for coming. We're going to meet next week. The material next week is unbelievable. Tell your friends, and I'm reminding everybody, each of you, there's the army of God. The army of God. They wear the uniform. They have their black yarmulkes and their beards and their glasses, and they wear their tzitzis. And then there's the people that are the secret service. Each of you is part of my secret service, to go out into the world and to share some of the ideas, all of the ideas that we've been studying together, and to turn people on to Jewish things, and to revealing God in the world, into bringing das into everything. Think why things happen. Don't be a victim. We learned today, a Jewish person, nobody has to be a victim. If you think about why things are happening and why God is sending me this trial, this difficulty, how I can use this to change the world, just like that woman that went through a terrible, terrible tragedy. And when the Rebbe said to her, she discovered herself when she took her heartbreak and she went to help other people. Not only did she help other people, she found solace for herself. And just the way that's true with a negative situation, it's true with a positive situation, right? Taking everything, how can I transform the world? How can I benefit the world? What can I do? Lema, not lama, not why did it happen to me? Why did it happen to me? Lema, for what? What did God want me to do with it? And that's how each person can transform the world. And that's something to teach our friends, okay? And together, we're going to bring the Mashiach right away. Everyone, thank you very much for coming, and we'll see everybody next week.
Thank you, Rabbi. That was nice.
Thank you.
My pleasure, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
God bless each of
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you for being here.